Good afternoon. Namaste. This is Dr. Uma Kidvital, Faculty of Agricultural and Veterinary Sciences, Jayoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur. As you know, I'll be taking the course Metabolism and Bioenergetics this semester. In the previous sessions, we have looked into the concept of free energy, the first and second laws of thermodynamics, and we have also dealt with what are the major high energy phosphate compounds that are used as the short-term energy storage molecules for coupling with the metabolic reactions in the cells. And now we'll be going into how the cell derives energy from the food that we are consuming. So when we are consuming food, it will be digested in the stomach and then absorbed in the intestine, and then this glucose is that what is transported to the cells. So once the cells have the glucose, what is its fate? So that is what we will be looking into in this session. So let us get into the understanding the process of glycolysis. Glycolysis is lysis of glucose or sweet. That is what we will be looking into in this session. So I was telling that that is the primary step of metabolism. So what is metabolism? Metabolism is a series of interconnected chemical reactions occurring within a cell, and the chemical compounds involved in these reactions are known as metabolites. So these enzymatic reactions, most of these reactions are enzyme catalyzed, and they are organized into discrete pathways in a very stepwise manner, so that the substrates are transformed into products, and these end product is formed through a series of intermediates, and these intermediates also have their relevance, as in like these intermediates also can branch as input or substrates for many other pathways also. So that is how metabolism is organized in a cell. So metabolic pathways can be of the following types, like linear pathways are there, like glycolysis, that we will be dealing with in this session, or cyclic pathways like citric acid cycle. It begins with the addition of combination of oxaloacetate and acetyl CoA to form citric acid, and the release of coenzyme A. And then the final end product will be like oxaloacetic acid will be regenerated. And so it's a cyclic process, because it starts with oxaloacetate combining with acetyl CoA, and it ends with oxaloacetate regeneration. And there are also spiral processes like the biosynthesis of fatty acids, so that we will be going into later in the course. So the metabolic pathways, they can be catabolic pathways or anabolic pathways. So the catabolic pathways are the breakdown of the molecules, and they generate energy to drive vital functions. Whereas then there are the anabolic pathways, they will be generating the biological molecules that are required for the functions, like the nucleic acid synthesis for DNA, for cell reproduction, or the fatty acids that will be produced for the hormone synthesis, or even for the storage of energy in the form of glycogen. So the glycogenesis, all these will be in the anabolic pathways. Now, so this catabolic pathways are normally involved in generation of energy. So they are exergonic in nature, and anabolic pathways are involved in the synthesis of compounds. So they normally absorb energy, and so they are endergonic in nature. Hope you remember what exergonic and endergonic reactions were. So most of these metabolic pathways are irreversible in that, like, you have consumed glucose and it's broken down into pyruvate. Glucose can then be generated back again, but it will not be through this reverse of this glycolysis pathway that will be happening. Gluconeogenesis will be happening through entirely different mechanisms inside the cell. And the one of the most important criteria of metabolism is that every metabolic pathway has a committed first step. Like when the glucose is getting phosphorylated to become glucose 6-phosphate and then to glucose 1,6 bisphosphate, that is a committed step from which it has to go on for glycolysis. There is no other way for that. So this metabolic pathways in eukaryotic cells occur in specific cellular locations. Like in the bacterial cells, in the prokaryotic cells, there are no specific cellular locations happening. But even then, there are membrane-bound reactions that are happening in the cell membrane, and there are cytosolic reactions that are happening inside the cell. So that still happens in bacterial cells. But when it comes to eukaryotes, there are this glycolysis that happens in the cytosol, the Krebs cycle that happens in the matrix of the mitochondria, and the electron transport chain that happens in the membrane of the mitochondria. So all these, they have specific locations that are designated for each process to happen. So now let us get into the details of glycolysis. So glycolysis, as I was saying, glycose means sweet and lysis means breakdown. So it is basically the lysis or the breakdown of the sweet that is present in our body, that is glucose. That is the primary energy source for our body. Almost all the products are converted into glucose before it is catabolized in order to produce energy for the cells. And it is also known as the EMP pathway. So glycolysis is the sequence of 10 enzyme catalyzed reactions that basically converts glucose into pyruvate with simultaneous production of ATP. 1 NADPH is also produced, and in this oxidative process, actually 1 mole of glucose gets converted into 2 moles of pyruvate, gets oxidized. And this happens, as I said, in the cytosol of the cell. And the one major feature of glycolysis is that it absolutely does not require oxygen. As in, this is a process that is common to aerobic cells and anaerobic cells, and can happen even when there is an energy shortage. Like glycolysis is actually one of the major pathways that happen when the cells have got some amount of oxygen shortage, like when we are exercising or something, and the workout, the energy consumption is much faster than the rate of energy generation or whatever ATP that we have in the cell, and the cell needs to produce energy fast. Then anaerobic glycolysis happens. That is only till pyruvate is produced. The pyruvate is not converted into acetyl-CoA. That is the committed step for Krebs cycle. So this acetyl-CoA production doesn't happen. It simply stops at pyruvate, and that pyruvate is converted to lactic acid because that is the end product of anaerobic glycolysis. So it can, as I was saying, it includes the formation of lactate from pyruvate in the anaerobic process, and in aerobic organisms, this glycolysis is the prelude to citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain. So this is the central pathway for glucose catabolism in any cell, be it bacterial cell, be it mammalian cell, be it avian cell. Glycolysis happens everywhere. So this if we are looking into other pathways for glucose utilization, then the first and the major one is oxidation via glycolysis. Then glucose can be stored in the form of glycogen, starch, or sucrose, or else if it is going into the pentose phosphate pathway, then it becomes the ribose 5-phosphate that can be used for the nucleic acid synthesis, or simply glucose could be used for extracellular matrix and cell wall polysaccharide in case of bacteria. The peptidoglycan contains glucose polymers in them. So these are all the major pathways for glucose utilization in the cell. So if we were to go into the pathways for the steps of glycolysis, I will show you the various steps of glycolysis. So in glycolysis, actually glucose gets converted by using hexokinase, and that requires a conversion of ATP to ADP. It's an energy intensive process, and then it becomes glucose 6-phosphate, and then this gets converted to fructose 6-phosphate, and then to fructose 1,6-diphosphate. So this phosphofructokinase is a very important enzyme in that it is one of the rate limiting steps of this process that also requires a conversion of ATP to ADP, and also there is this is a feedback regulated enzyme as well. And then once the fructose 1,6-diphosphate is produced, then aldolase converts it to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and dihydroxyacetone 3-phosphate. And then this one will then be like the dihydroxyacetone phosphate needs to be converted by phosphotriose isomerase to form glyceraldehyde, and it's glyceraldehyde that will be participating in the rest of the steps. So then the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate will be converted into 1,3-diphosphoglycerate using triose phosphate dehydrogenase, and that is the step where NADH2 is produced. So please note where the energy is being consumed. So there are 2 steps where energy is being consumed and 3 steps where energy is being produced. Nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide and its reduced form. This reduced form, the NADH2, is actually what is the energy rich molecule, as in like that can be oxidized during electron transport chain, and NADH2 is 1 NADH2, 1 mole of NADH2 is equivalent to 3 moles of ATP. And then in the next step, the 1,3-diphosphoglycerate will be converted into 3-phosphoglycerate. The 1-phosphate that is removed will be used in the formation of ATP, and that again gives out energy, and that will be used for the production of ATP. And then this phosphoglyceromutase will actually, this is an isomerization reaction, because the 3-phosphoglycerate will become 2-phosphoglycerate, and or rather a mutation reaction wherein the phosphorus is now, instead of at location 3, it will be at the location 2. And then one of the major, the next most important enzyme, enolase, which will provide the phosphoenol pyruvate. Now, if you remember the last session, I told that phosphoenol pyruvate is a high energy phosphate compound. It is an enol phosphate. So that can again convert 1 ADP to ATP and result in the formation of pyruvate. So the two phases of glycolysis is the preparatory phase and the payoff phase. So this much is the preparatory phase. This half is the preparatory phase, the formation, the lysis of glucose to form two molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, or rather 1 mole of glucose is converted into 1 mole of dihydroxyacetone phosphate and 1 mole of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So that is actually the preparatory phase, and the formation of the conversion of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, or the 2 moles of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate into 2 moles of pyruvate is the payoff phase. So those are the two phases that are involved for glycolysis. Now, I was telling, so this first 5 steps of glycolysis, this results in the cleavage of the hexose chain, and it requires 2 ATP molecules in order to cleave the glucose into 2 moles of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, or 1 mole of dihydroxyacetone phosphate and 1 mole of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. But what happens is, since the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate is being used in the reaction, so it will be the dihydroxyacetone phosphate will be converted into glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate in the next step. So that is what is the total energy consumption phase, and then the energy release phase. So I had told you the 3 steps where this one is being released, energy is being released. In the first step, it is the formation of NADH2. Now please remember that one NADH2 is equivalent to 3 moles of ATP. So where the glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, there is the addition of 1 phosphate, and the triose phosphate dehydrogenase will release 1 NADH2 and give 1 diphosphoglycerate molecule. And then in the next step, this 1,3-diphosphoglycerate will be converted into 3-phosphoglycerate. So that is the second step. And the third step is where the phosphoenol pyruvate, after the formation of phosphoenol pyruvate, another ATP is produced when the phosphate is removed from the phosphoenol pyruvate, and pyruvate is formed. So these are the 3 steps where energy is produced. So the total ATP yield would be actually around 2 ATPs produced, 2 ATPs consumed, and 1 NADPH is also produced. Now, but this 2 ATPs produced for each molecule of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. So you have to double it. So 2 moles of NADH is produced, and 4 moles of ATP is produced, but only 2 moles of ATP is consumed. So finally, there will be 2 ATP plus 2 NADPH, and since 1 ATP is equal to 1 NADH is equal to 3 ATP, so that will be 6 ATP plus 2 ATP. So finally, the total yield of glycolysis is 8 moles of ATP per mole of glucose. This is a very important fact that you have to remember. Now, yeah, let me again share this. So, yeah, so this will be the sum total of the reaction of glycolysis. So if there is glucose plus 2 ATP plus 2 PI, plus 2 NAD plus 2 H plus 4 ADP. This is the sum of the reactants. And then for each, as I was saying, for each glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate, 2 ATP is produced and 2 NADH is produced. So we will have 4 ATP and 1 NADH is produced. So we will have total of 4 ATP and 2 NADH. And so now if we were to take the sum total of the reaction, then it will be glucose plus 2 PI plus 2 ADP plus 2 NAD will be giving 2 pyruvate plus 2 NADH plus 2 ATP plus 2H plus NADH plus H plus it will be, and 2 moles of water. So as I was saying, 1 NADH is equal to 3 moles of ATP, and so when we are having this, the sum total of the energy produced during glycolysis is 8 moles of ATP per mole of glucose. That is now if I were to summarize, so glycolysis is the primary step for energy release from glucose in the cell. So that is a precursor step to Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle in aerobic organisms, and it could also lead to fermentation in anaerobic organisms. So for that, lactic acid will be produced, and from there ethanol will be produced. So that is the step for fermentation in anaerobic organisms, and it results in the production of 8 moles of ATP per mole of glucose in the cell. So that will be your that is what the sum total of the points. Along with that 10 steps, you will have to memorize those 10 steps of glycolysis, where the ATP production happens, where the NADH production happens, and the enzymes for each of these 10 steps. All these you will have to memorize the entire pathway, because this is one of the basic steps of biochemistry for bioenergetics. So that'll be all for this session. Thank you. Have a nice day.